You are listening to the new man beyond the macho jerk and the new age wimp. Your host is men's coach and group facilitator Tripp Lanier. He is joined in the studio by the show's producer, Casey Capshaw.
Do you have a nagging feeling that something needs to change in your life? Are you racking your brain trying to figure it out? And what does it mean for you to learn how to trust your gut? This week, Decker Cunov is on the show to discuss how we can tap deeper into ourselves to find the answers to life's difficult questions. Welcome to The New Man. Today we're talking with Decker Cunov. He's president of The Authentic World, a personal development company that specializes in helping people have amazing, rewarding relationships. Decker, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
How are things going out there? You're located in San Francisco, right?
Yep, that's the home base.
That's the home base.
It's good, man. I mean, it's been we kind of had a little summer vacation, but things are good. And it's good catching up with you. We could just hang out, but maybe your listeners want us to talk about something more substantial.
You don't want to just sit here and bullshit around for a half an hour?
We can let them in on how profound and rewarding our bullshitting conversations are.
Let's have an authentic bullshit. That's what we'll do. Well, I wanted to talk to you because you've helped me in this way personally in the work that we've done together. But I'm thinking about the guy out there that's starting to realize he's starting to hit the wall. He's realizing that something needs to change in his life, and he doesn't know how to quote unquote figure it out. Like he's got to kind of have a strategy or a map out there. And we've talked a lot about how to trust our gut, how to trust our hunches, that kind of thing. You've brought a lot of that awareness to me in my practice. And I was curious how do we help this guy out? He's trying to figure it out.
Man, the first thing I would do is just celebrate that he's aware of it. Like most people, I don't know many people who are aware that something needs to change or they've hit a wall.
Well, let's start there. How would a guy know that something needs to change? Like what are the telltale signs? Usually it has to explode. Like most guys' threshold from being totally miserable is amazing. I can tolerate hating my life for a long time and not do anything about it. Just accept it. I guess that's just how it is, and I'm going to grin and bear it. It's kind of like I'm going to suck it up kind of thing, right? Yeah.
I'm going to persevere and tolerate. It doesn't, at least for me, it didn't occur to me that there was something to be addressed. I had, even my physical body, like, I never would take Tylenol or think I was sick. It was just like, oh, mind over matter, something to just kind of push through. And then after a year of sneezing and being congested, I was like, I think I need to do something about this. I think I have allergies or something. But it took a year of misery before it finally cracked me over the head enough. I was like, I think something's wrong.
And that would probably be like what we talk about when a guy's checked out. Like he's just not paying attention to all the signals that are coming his way.
If you're a guy, and if you're like me and Tripp, then you probably are sleepwalking in some way right now. Absolutely. And I think the reason I'm so busy working with man-woman dynamics is because women, when a guy relates with women, that highlights where we're actually selling ourselves short. We tolerate it, and then we start relating with this woman, and she doesn't want to tolerate it with us. She gets upset, and that's what gets me off my ass to actually pay attention. Or
she's feeling what we're not willing to feel, and like just loud. She's a loudspeaker for it.
I'm happy to be numb. However numb I have to be to ignore the thing that's bugging me, that's fine with me. But yeah, most women do not want to live their lives that numb.
Okay. So,
or, it'll show up in your career, or it'll show up in my physical health, like that example. Like, eventually, something has to give.
Right. And do you have, like, a personal anecdote other than the, the thing where you had the allergies or something? Do you have something like, it woke you up, like, wow, I'm checked out. There's something going on here.
No, that's the only time that I've actually paid attention to myself. No, let me see if I can think of another example. Well, if I follow even that example with my health, I just never got sick, ever. My mom never saw me. I mean, I would take sick days from school just to skip school, pretend like I threw up or something. But it wasn't until that spell where I was like, I think I have to actually take care of my body. And the other piece was I was grinding my teeth at night.
All right.
Which is a great one. That's a great symptom because I have no control over that. You're sleeping.
Right.
Like, all my bullshitting techniques don't work. I'm asleep. But, the woman I'm dating is like, Jesus, you're gritting your teeth like crazy at night. So,
and you're probably like thinking, I wonder if it's something I ate, or, you kind of like look everywhere else other than your emotional.
I tried that. I did juice fasts. I did all that stuff. Like maybe I'm not sleeping enough. Maybe I'm sleeping too much. Maybe I don't know what the hell. There is no roadmap. You have to actually just slow down and start paying attention. But with the allergies and all that, the congestion, I thought it may be food. But with grinding my teeth, that was just weird. Like, that was pretty obvious there's some stress or something bugging me.
Right.
And meanwhile, I'm grinding my teeth down, like the dentist is upset.
Right.
And whoever girl is spending the night, she's upset. She can't sleep.
Right.
Or she's weirded out. And I can't fake it anymore. And it wasn't until I slowed down and realized that I was actually upset. That things were bothering me, that I actually wanted something different than how things were going. That the downside was then all of a sudden I'm crying. Like, I'm feeling emotional now even remembering it, but it was an intense time. And, if you're like me, I was an Army brat growing up. My dad was Special Forces, and there wasn't a lot of vulnerability in paying attention to myself. That was not a priority. You back something up for a while, you block it off, and the water level rises. I had years of hurt feelings and fears and all kinds of stuff bottled up that was finally showing up as me grinding my teeth like a madman.
Yeah, it's like it's a form of constipation. It's a form of, and then the body starts to, like, it's got to come out somehow.
That's a pretty disgusting metaphor for that. Thanks, Tripp. It's coming out my nostrils.
That's what I'm here for, man.
Yeah, so when I slow down and pay attention, all of a sudden I'm starting to tear up, and my teeth are starting to chatter, and I'm just like this, emotionally constipated guy, and I'm starting to actually sob and share that I actually want things from people. And
now, was it
like, you want me to be closer to you? A girl was she saying that? She's like, I think you just want me to be closer. Well, hey, I'm not going to do it for you, though. I want you to practice. Ask me to be closer to you. Okay, will you? I'm just crying, So I reached a threshold. I had to actually start feeling more. And man, on the other side of crying like a baby for like an hour, that night I sleep like a baby. No grinding my teeth. I wake up the next morning, no congestion. I mean, the amount of snot that came out of me when I had that crying spell was unreal. But the next day, all of a sudden, things are a little more in balance. That's an example of it. And I definitely think that shows up in just a guy's life direction in general, like career choices and lifestyle choices. If we don't pay attention, if we're in our head just trying to figure out the right way to do it and ignore how we're feeling and deeper within our body, we're going to be miserable as long as we're willing to tolerate it until it finally pops.
Yeah, what I'm present to is that in that scenario, you actually just allowed yourself to experience what was going on, and you didn't try to put it in a box or explain it at the time. I'm imagining that. And whereas another guy is probably going to be like kicking and screaming. All right, me, I'll be kicking and screaming, wanting to put a wrapper on it. Why is this happening? What is going on? Is there another way to do this without having to actually experience the emotions involved? And I imagine, I meet a lot of guys that seems to resonate with them too. And so if you mentioned life direction, how does this show up in choosing what I'm going to do with my life?
Well, first of all, believe me, I did try to not feel it. I tried my damnedest, but I happened to, I surrounded myself with people who get bored with bullshit. So when I started not getting numb again, like, not that I need to be sad. I mean, if I look at it this way, and I start trying to avoid the feelings, they get bored. Like, everyone feels less alive, more numb. They're like, I don't want to hear your explanation. What are you feeling? Like, they held the fire up to me until I just dropped in. And if you don't do that, life direction is like that movie, remember The Truman Show?
Yeah, right.
I was still in the Army when that movie came out, and I remember guys talking about it, like, man, that was messed up. I was like, really, what was messed up about it? Because I was kind of an odd duck there. I was the philosopher soldier. So for me, one of my best buddies is like Nietzsche and Sartre and all those guys. So I was digging that movie, but I just wanted to hear what these Army guys are going to say about it. Like, it was messed up, He thought he was really making his own choices, but everything he chose was just these limited options available on this stupid TV set. That's twisted, man. It's cruel. They're like, huh.
Let's all zoom out, shall we?
What's that?
That's like, let's all zoom out, shall we, and take a look at our own lives in that.
Exactly. Because not him. It was disgusting in that movie, but not him. He chose his life, and I could just see it for my own too. Like, I supposedly chose this based on the menu that was offered. Show up. You got your high school counselor. You got college or I don't know, vocational training. Here's your options, and you get to select one, and that's you choosing your life. Mm-hmm. And it's when you make choices that way. If I make a choice like that, I pay attention to how I feel in my body. And if my body feels kind of irritated or numb or settling, and that's the kind of choices I make, or choices that make me feel that way, that's the lifestyle I'm creating. Mm-hmm. The whole vibe of my whole lifestyle is the culmination of how it feels every choice I make.
Right. So we have the opportunity in every moment, you're saying, to like gauge where we are in our lives. Like, how does it feel to be making this choice? Like, driving into work today, what am I tolerating? What am I putting up with? That just start to listen to our own bodies in the same way as, like, it's snot coming out of our nose, or we're grinding our teeth. We're getting information all the time about the quality of, or would you call it the integrity of our choices?
I like that. It's usually I lose integrity by trying to be accurate about something.
Okay.
As if my beliefs, like, I'm going to make my choices based on what I believe, and the right way, or here's my standards, and this choice is going to get me mainly to my goal. And basically, if anyone really, Socrates style, if you actually checked my beliefs that I'm so right about, they're based on big-ass assumptions. I'm guessing. Even my most prized beliefs are long shots at best. Mm-hmm. And when I let go of that, trying to be accurate or not accurate, and it's like, well, when I believe this, how do I feel? Everything starts to change. I actually, I'm wary right here. I'm cautious, because it's not like I recommend that every client just follow every gut impulse.
Yeah, it's almost like it could lead to a road of like a hedonistic lifestyle. Well, it felt good in the moment, so I did it. It seems like there seems like there's another piece there to temper that.
Well, it could be really hedonistic. Most guys I meet don't let themselves want things enough for them even to be hedonistic.
So they cut it off before it can even get to that point.
Totally. Well, usually, if I really put you on the spot and you're going to claim what you really want, most guys are like, well, I guess, yeah, if I could have it exactly how I wanted it to be this way, but that might make other people uncomfortable, or, that's not how other people do it, that's not what my parents expected, or that blah, blah, blah. And I don't really deserve it that much. It's not that big of a deal. Like, very few people really let themselves deserve or want what they want enough to be hedonistic. I think that'd be a breakthrough. I'd love to see people more hedonistic. Actually.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. We'll return to the discussion in just a moment. The New Man Podcast is celebrating its first year, and we'd like to offer what we feel is the best of the New Man. The Best of the New Man Volume 1 is a 6 CD set which features, Well, the best of our programs in a high-quality, easy-to-use format. In these interviews, we discuss how to have difficult conversations with your woman. What do women really want from a man? How to be firm with someone without being an asshole. How to stay out of the friend zone. What kills sexual attraction in a relationship? How to handle blue balls. How to safely deal with your anger. And we'll also dive into the deeper questions like, why are you holding back in your life? Perhaps you know a guy who'd like the new man, but isn't hip to podcasts. Or maybe you just want the convenience of our best shows on CD for yourself. Support the new man and go to thenewmanpodcast.com to purchase the Best of the New Man Volume 1 CD set today. As an added bonus, we'll throw in a free 30-minute coaching session with me, Tripp Lanier. Thanks for listening, and now we head back to the discussion.
I'd love to see people more hedonistic, actually. But it could lead to total disaster. Like, you just follow whatever gut impulse, and you may end up losing your job, or things that I'm not attached to you keeping your job, but this is the kind of choice when you start really following what feels true for you, where you feel lit up. Mm-hmm. The type of thing that has you wake up in the morning and you're excited that you're alive for another day. So few clients I've ever worked with wake up grateful that they're alive again, that they have another day to live. For you to make choices that lead to that, it's fucking risky.
How so? What's at stake here? I entertain me.
I did some crazy stuff, man. When I was actually paying attention to I was philosophical enough to realize that my philosophy was fairly arbitrary, and just paid attention to what felt good and right. Meanwhile, when I did that, I did crazy stuff. And meanwhile, my good buddies, who were also pretty smart cats, they're like climbing corporate ladders, and they're doctors, and they own houses and families. And meanwhile, I'm traipsing around India, like meeting random people, and I lived paycheck to paycheck for years. Mm-hmm. And I'm telling you, it was on the line. I was like, I may never make much money. I may be kind of poor as hell when I need to retire, because if I keep just trusting and following what I love, so far it's leading me to more and more poverty, and everyone else is like set. And if I'm going to go on vacation with my old buddies, they got to pay for my way because I have no money.
Yeah,
so it's edgy.
Yeah, it's very edgy in the sense that on one end, we can use that as like a yardstick to compare ourselves by, right? These guys have achieved this status and they've gotten to this place in their lives. There's not really an interior gauge of like, well, how do they really feel about it? But on the other end, it's like living, as you were talking about, from this place of what's true for me, what's best for me, what am I doing moment to moment, doesn't necessarily guarantee that I'm going to be quote unquote successful. Mm-hmm.
And successful, you got to define success. And
right.
It's another one of those arbitrary concepts. But one of the missing pieces to temper things, I think, is that I actually care about the experience of my friends. Mm-hmm. Like, I've always felt this, and I think it's served me a lot. If the people I love in my life aren't happy, then I'm not totally happy. And I don't want to be codependent about it. I don't want to get entangled, and they may have hard times. It doesn't help for me to get all depressed with them. So I'm not saying you want to do that, but there is a certain way that my happiness is contingent on the people I care about also living fulfilled lives. So my choices have me feel a certain way, and they have people around me feel a certain way. You with me?
Yeah. So you're saying that you're aware of the impact of your choices onto others as well.
Yeah, I may be climbing that ladder, and I have a good retirement plan going, all that stuff. And meanwhile, not only do I feel a little bit foggy and just kind of going through the motions, but people around me feel less alive. Mm-hmm. And meanwhile, when I was traipsing around India, and when I'm like living in my Jeep, traveling and meeting people, and like, it didn't look like I was, quote, successful compared to most of my friends, yet everyone around me seemed happier. Around me. They enjoyed being around me anyway. Everyone felt happier. So that was part of my metrics, I guess, for how I was going to choose. I was going to choose based on what felt true, and for me, it came around really well. like, I don't know, maybe in the high school job fair. It's not like relationship coach or motivational speaker was not on the menu. It wasn't something I was choosing. In fact, I had friends that I would work with before we even knew what coaching was. We had men's circles before we'd ever heard the term men's circle. And I would work with a guy, and he'd be really moved and inspired. He's like, man, whatever you just did, that's what you should do for a living. But I don't know how. I mean, maybe you should write a book, but no, it needs to be in person. But how could it be in person? Like, they didn't have course leader in their head. That wasn't even in our reality.
Right.
For them to say, hey, you should be a course leader. But they knew, they're like, there's something here you're given. Like, who you are is a gift for people when you're doing it in this way. You got to find a way to make that a living out of that.
I think that's the point, is like finding out where the value is, because it's not just valuable to you. You're saying it's impacting others around you.
Yes.
And the other part is just recognizing that just because it's not on the menu doesn't mean that it's not possible or it's not your gig on this time around the wheel, so to speak.
For me, it turned around where I make great money now, and I enjoy I do what I can't help but to do anyway.
Right.
If you and I hang out, I'll end up doing the same kind of thing I do with clients for free, just because we enjoy it, because we love seeing what's under there. Oh, what's under that rock? And I get paid well to do it, and I enjoy my life, and I have I can raise a family now when I choose to, and it paid off for me. And you can't count on that. You can't be attached to that. It is a free fall.
Yeah.
When you start trusting and you're willing to celebrate whatever your karma is, or whatever it comes from you just sticking to your guns and following what seems true, it's a free fall, man. You don't get your little ego management of trying to orchestrate how you look to other people, and if your life looks like theirs, and if it fits the view of what success is and all that, so you don't feel like a failure. Like, you forfeit your right to try to manage how it all turns out. So it's an edgy game.
It is an edgy game.
That's my caution.
Yeah, I kind of zooming out, and I'm thinking, all right, the guy's, he's starting to bump his head up against the wall. He realizes that the menu is far too limited for him, and he's feeling that there's something else out there. And I've got clients that come in like, man, I'm ready to hang it up, and I'm 45 years old, and I'm going to go be a rock guitarist. I'm like, okay.
Yep.
And there's it's kind of this all or nothing. It has this like, I'm going to get off the train completely. It's like, and I'm wondering if, in your experience, how you've seen people bring more to their lives without necessarily having to throw it all away. Because I think there's this assumption that I've got to trash my job, I've got to throw away my family, all this stuff needs to be jettisoned so I can live a more true, genuine life. Yeah,
it's very black and white, which I relate. I'm uncomfortable with anything other than extremes, and yet, usually when I work with someone who like screw it, I'm just going to go do my art, or I know musicians in San Francisco like that, and usually I actually feel less connected to them and less inspired by them when they go reckless like that.
Why is that? What has that?
Usually it turns out that they're not paying attention to what inspires them. They're fed up. And so there's just really extreme, like, screw it, I'm just going to dump everything and quit now and just go on the road. And it's not coming from a deeper wisdom. It's coming from an impulsive, frustrated, it's either frivolous or just reactive.
Yeah, it's
place.
It's a fuck it all versus what is it that I really want to do and express in my life now. My
life is happening right now.
Mm-hmm.
And now, and the only thing, if it's a masterpiece, if I want to relate to my life as a masterpiece, I'm sculpting it with every choice I make, and I'm going to start being more inspired, and I'm going to pay more attention with every choice, such that it feels inspiring to me. And screw it, I'm quitting today. Rarely does that actually feel inspiring. It has, though. I've met people where it felt really right. I was like, whoo, I'm scared for you, but it feels right. So it may be extreme, it may not, but it's less about the specifics. It's about actually paying attention to what it feels like. If you make a choice that feels really reactive and like coming from a place of something's wrong with how my life is right now, like my life sucks, which, I could take you to other places in the world, and you can see that your life is pretty goddamn good.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't feel gratitude for it now, what makes you think you're going to feel gratitude for it later?
Right.
Because it could be a lot worse than it is now, and you're not feeling gratitude. Even if you make it better than this, so you can see that. But you can still make a choice as if your life sucks now. But if you do, that's the energy that you're going to create in your whole lifestyle. You're going to wake up in the morning with this sense of that there's something not good enough.
And it's almost like the carrot or whatever you're chasing always seems to just stay 2 yards ahead. Is that right? Like it just kind of has this feeling of I'm never going to grasp it. It'll always just stay
someday.
right out there. I'll never be satisfied, essentially.
Unless something's going to happen, and then I'll enjoy myself, as opposed to right now. And if you really stick to your guns and make sure that it feels inspiring and feels right for you right now, it's usually there's a wisdom. Most people have wisdom. It's good news. It's good news that you tend to be a fairly steady. You may make a dramatic shift, but it seems to be pretty steady.
And so we can tap into that wisdom, you say, and I'm imagining, there's a part of me, it's like, gosh, if I want to make a life change, I'm going to have to change everything. It just seems so daunting. It just seems so like a vertical cliff versus a welcoming path up the mountain, so to speak, like something that I'm willing to, that meets me where I am, meets me where I'm ready to
go.
Now,
when it feels daunting for you, what is it, when you feel into it, like, oh, I'm going to have to make all these changes and stuff, what's the real cost for you personally? Like, what are you going to lose?
I would say in that moment for me, it's really around things of security, stability.
You start to get afraid.
Yeah, it's like a fear response. So if I'm going to step out into this unknown, I'm leaving behind the safety of, well, it may suck here, but I know what it's like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I relate to that one. Some people have comfort, like, oh man, I'm not going to be as comfortable, or yeah, I'm not going to be as secure. Like, oh, what if then all my savings are gone, and then all of a sudden I'm going to go hungry, and what if I get sick and then I can't get a different job? But like in your example with security, if you actually enjoy your life more, you're probably going to be a healthy, functional citizen of society for a long time. You're actually going to be able to handle yourself, your basic needs, and then some for a long time, longer than if you sit here and suffer silently.
Yeah.
So it usually turns out to be the opposite. Like with comfort, a lot of people don't need nearly as many luxuries as they think they do. If I'm doing what I love, there's these guys in the alley behind the Core Center in San Francisco. They rented out this old screwed up warehouse that used to be an auto shop, and they just play music and throw parties. And San Francisco rent, I know they're barely covering that thing, and they seem happy as hell. I'm envious every time I see them. I'm like, oh, they are just doing what they dig doing the most. Mm-hmm. And they're hanging out with each other. They got good friends, making good jokes, picking up fun women at times, maybe not, but doing what they love, and they're happier than me.
Yeah,
I can tell, and they don't need nearly as much. I don't even know if they have bedrooms. They probably just crash in the chill space next to the recording, whatever you can call it, a studio. But they're happy.
There's this assumption that the path is going to be arduous and it's not going to be fulfilling along the way. So I may be sleeping at some shitball warehouse in San Francisco behind the Core Center, but I'm not taking I'm already assuming that it's going to suck. It's going to be this hard, arduous path. And then
you're assuming that you have way more needs than you actually do.
Right.
So people start to act as if they're these fragile, high maintenance creatures.
Oh, and that's where life starts to feel really narrow. And I see it a lot even when I work with my more affluent clients. It's like they're more terrified than the guys that are only pulling in a couple $100 a week, Yep. There's like so much more to lose.
And another big enemy to living a more passionate life is, I'd be fine. I don't even need good food. I'll live on P&J. That's fine. But my family or my friends who are close, like there's other people who rely on me, and they're weak and needy.
Yeah.
Like, they can't handle it. They need all these luxuries and stuff, so I can't actually be true to myself.
Well, and then there's the guy too that's
vicious.
like, yeah, if I don't do this for my family, I'll rock the boat. Or how much of that is being responsible to your family, and how much of that is just bullshit?
Where you're putting it on them. You're putting responsibility on them. Really, if human beings are really needy, the thing that we're most needy for is happiness. The thing that they're needing from you is to have a parent who's actually enjoying himself. They would love to have a role model for enjoying your life. That's what they're needy for, way more than all the plastic toys and shit that we think we need to buy them.
Right. Or to just have the guy that comes in with this wave of resentment every day that this family is the boat anchor of my life, and I'm unable to follow the things I'm most passionate about. That kind of
because supposedly I'm serving them by resenting them and being miserable.
There's the guy that's sucking it up and doing it for the family again. When does it go from being the guy that's sucking it up, or he's tolerating things, and he does have a fear of like being whiny or selfish, or what's the fine line between being selfish and being right with yourself?
That was the one tweak I made earlier. If your heart's open, you actually care about the people in your life. What I mean by heart open is like, I don't know, some guys you have to watch. I saw this YouTube clip forwarded around where this lion got raised by these two guys. Did you see this?
No.
They eventually send the lion to this some sort of wildlife refuge or something like that, but then they come back to get to visit their lion because they hadn't seen it in a long time or something. It comes running. It's been hanging out with wild lions, and then it comes out and sees its two friends and runs up. Looks like he's going to eat them or something, and then just runs up and is hugging them and licking them, and like this huge lion just pouncing on his two friends like he missed them so much. And I'm bawling. And when I say heart open, I mean literally. When I feel moved, when I feel my heart more, I feel love. I feel it in my chest, like right around where my heart is. So I mean literally having your heart open. When it is open like that, people around you matter. So your choices aren't selfish or frivolous, but they are uncompromising. There is a brutal honesty to it. This is what makes me happy, and this is what doesn't. This feels like crap, and this doesn't. And that's where authentic relationship starts to happen, is when people actually start being themselves together. Then the real artistry, the real dance begins. Until then, we're all just selling ourselves out, constantly blaming it on each other. Oh, well, I wouldn't want to make them uncomfortable.
Right. And so basically, we get a bunch of numb people who avoid upset and don't really know each other. And that's what a lot of us are settling for. They don't even know any different. And I heard someone the other day say, well, if I'm honest, then I'm rude. And I was like, wait a second. I had to get that. I was like, so in your world, if you're honest with somebody, then you're being rude. And she was like, yes. And
how do you define rude? How do you know if you're rude or not?
Yeah, and there was this thing of I kind of went down the road with her a little bit on that one, and it was this thing of in order to be polite, I just mind my own business and I don't really say what I mean about what's going on. And maybe the middle part in there that was missing was skillful means. How do you say what's going on?
Partially, but also she's polite. Polite is a pretty relative concept. It's another one of those beliefs that I hold very lightly. And she's probably saying her definition unconsciously for polite is, I'm being polite if no one else gets upset.
Right.
That equals polite. Don't rock the boat. Which means tiptoe around anyone's insecurities or things they don't want to look at so we can stay numb together.
And you're saying that the path, if we're more authentic, we're going to be more willing to disagree, more willing to rock the boat or be confrontational in a sense, but that actually leads to greater peace of mind, greater enjoyment, greater relating. Way more love, even, and that means a willingness to go into some places that are not easy to go into. That's what started a lot of the authenticity work that I did with Brian Baer. He fell in love with a girl that I ended up dating,
he got upset. There's another woman involved in the dynamic, and I just started shutting down as they're all expressing upset and what they want and all that. I just get quiet. And of course, like bloodhounds, they're on me. Hey, we're committed to hiding nothing. What's going on for you? Well, I'm feeling some emotion, but you guys are already crying, so I'll share mine later.
Uh-huh.
We don't need to all be honest at the same time. let's pace ourselves, shall we? And Brian looks up at me, snot, like he's wiping snot off his face. He looks up and he's like, "Don't pat me on the head, motherfucker."
Wow.
I'm actually playing full out here. If I'm hurt, I'm hurt. That doesn't mean that's an excuse for you to puss out. What the fuck are you feeling? He totally called me out. And I'm like, oh man, all right. Well, if you're upset because of something I did, then I feel like, and I'm in that state where I don't even know what I'm about to say. Mm-hmm. I'm just speaking whatever's true. And I'm like, I don't know. I feel like I shouldn't even be here. But as I said, I shouldn't even be here. I didn't even get those words out. I just started sobbing. That's what I didn't want to feel. Mm-hmm. That's why I don't play full out. Because if he gets upset, then I feel how much I love him. I love people in my life, and I got to actually feel and express it, and then I'm crying. Which, if you don't bottle it up for years, it's not such an explosive event. It's more natural. But for me, it was like volcano time.
Yeah.
But I think that's what people don't want to feel, is how much they love each other, and so we keep it tame. Yeah,
there's like this. I've seen it a lot too. It's just the guy like, wow, underneath that big tough veneer, you give a shit. You really give a shit, and when they allow themselves to actually feel how much they care about others, and it's usually the big tough guys, that they're the sweet teddy bears underneath, that they really fucking care, and it kills them. To not be able to, there's a holding back that happens.
When I insisted on having relationships like that, because emotionally I try to keep a cap on things, but in general I had a very low tolerance for inauthenticity, for tiptoeing around things, for wordsmithing a lot of stuff. I just couldn't stand it. So I insisted on pretty raw, real relationships. And
you had an amazing community that you've been a part of, by the way. I just that's been the unspoken thing, was that, the center of gravity amongst the people you were with was like, they were calling you out, they're tolerating you. You weren't necessarily on your own in this journey.
Totally.
Yeah. Okay.
However, I chose those people. I actually collected that group of people.
Right.
Very intentionally, because I couldn't really stand anything else.
Uh-huh.
And then after I'm like building a group of people like that, then I'm regretting it. I'm like, uh-oh, what have I done? Now I can't hide.
I gave everyone knives, and now they know how to use them.
Yeah, I want to have a group of people who demand more honesty from me than they demand so much of me that I'm scared. Mm-hmm. But then the problem with that is then they actually do it, and then I'm actually scared.
Yeah.
But then I actually grow.
Yeah.
And when I lived that way, I started doing stuff. In college, all of a sudden, I'm joining the Army. And people who know me are like, what are you doing? And I didn't know yet. Later, I could riff about evolving the training philosophy of the military to more intrinsic motivation rather than blind obedience. And I could just riff for hours on why I joined the Army and how I'm going to help that change the world and all this stuff. But in the moment, I didn't have any rationalization. I felt something. And I was listening to it and following it. And when people were questioning it, and I knew I wasn't articulate about why, I just had to, there was a point where I had to protect that feeling and just go. Mm-hmm. And then really end up being happy I did. I joined a fraternity. And then guys are really flipping out. Like, that's like the opposite of you, man. What are you thinking? But every fraternity had a creed. There was basically men coming together to better each other so they can go out and better the world.
Right.
And of course, they're just getting drunk and hating each other. But my inspiration was to join one and build it back to what it was intended to be. Mm-hmm. Now, was I articulate about fraternity and charity and all that philanthropy stuff? Not yet. I just felt something, and I actually followed it.
I think that's the part that I was speaking to, is like a guy can get a hunch. And I'll just speak on I'll get a hunch, and I need to justify it, or I need to rationalize it. Like, let's just say I was the one that wanted to join the army or join the fraternity. Then I would need to kind of come back and put some, well, okay, I had this really strong urge and pull. It's like a pull to do it. Now I need to like justify it for some reason, because I'm gonna have to tell my friends, why in the hell am I doing this? And then it gets bottlenecked. Then it gets stuck. And I think that's what I was trying to get at earlier. It's like a guy may have an urge, like he'll be lit up by something. He'll be lit up by the arts or golf or whatever the fuck it may be, but it's going to rock the boat if he follows it. So he's got to come up with this. He's got to figure out why he should do it.
The justification.
The justification.
Oh, yeah. That's the roadmap you're talking about.
Yeah.
That sometimes doesn't serve.
Yeah.
Because there isn't one.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people are happy to act as if they're an authority on how other people should live their life. So if you're looking for someone to actually give you a roadmap, there are people who act as if they can do that. But I have yet to find, like, nothing, no parchment has fallen out of the sky for me.
No.
The gates of heaven lie within. It came from me paying attention to what felt like more love, more inspiration, more fun, more depth and meaningfulness. That came from just paying attention to how I felt.
Yeah, I have, I went through a big change. I've gone through a couple of these kind of hitting the wall periods. They're a load of fun. Being sarcastic, but the one I landed in.
It's fun getting your phone calls when you hit them too, by the way.
But a few years ago, I hit the wall. Went through a big life change, and thought I was going to really be able to strategize myself through it. Like, I really believed that I was going to. Okay, great. I'll be able to do this, and then I'll do that, and then it'll work out. And nothing worked. Like, nothing seemed to work, and I was beating my head against the wall. And this is for years. Like, this is literally for 2 going on 3 years. And I just surrendered. I just gave up, and I was like, I'm going to follow my heart, my gut, whatever you want to call it. But there's a place in my chest and the solar plex. Like, when does this part open up in me? I'm just going to follow that. Like, fuck it. I could be dead Friday. At least I'm going to follow this thing, and I'm going to quit trying to make it right or be able to explain it. And that's been the path out of this hole for me. And just learning how to trust that more and more. So I appreciate you speaking that too.
Yeah. How's that going so far?
Good. The times that I get into trouble are when I'm trying to get too far ahead of it. I have to stay in touch with it in real time. Like, it has I can't be like, okay, so this is how it is now. So in 6 months, it'll be this way. And then that's when it's like, nope.
I love it. I'm dancing right now listening to you.
Yeah.
I call that the sweet spot.
Yeah. There's
a sweet spot. You have to find the sweet spot, and you can't wait for it. You got to start listening and following it and take action. But you also can't force it.
No.
You can't, like, if you listen for a while, like, oh, so it's my music, and then you stop, so now I'm going to stop paying attention and just launch a music career, and rewind, let it unfold, let your game come to you.
Right.
You're not trying to, for me, I want to, like, okay, I'll pay attention to myself for a day so that I can get this resolved, and then I'll have it go, and then I can go on autopilot again. Wrong answer. Can't get ahead of yourself. You have to actually pay attention, enjoy the ride, and let it unfold day by day.
That's been the lesson. That has been the lesson for me as well. It's just like, I like what you call it, that sweet spot, because it's so painful either way. I know when I'm not in the pain in the sweet spot, because it feels like I'm trying to force something. Mm-hmm. And the other version is that I'm just completely fucking lost.
First time I found the sweet spot was. Yeah, lost is perfect too. First time I found it was actually through massaging a woman. All of a sudden, I found this groove where it was as if my hand was gliding on glass through her, and I found my way up her spine and then over to her jaw, like up her neck to her jaw, and she just started, gasping and releasing and relaxing. But when I followed that glassy feeling, it ended up having my finger going so deep into her jaw muscle that I freaked out. I was like, whoa, I'm going up in her jaw socket. I don't know anatomy that well. This may be a bad idea. The next thing I know, I'm like half my fingers in her jaw muscle, and she's just ecstatic. Like, she's like having orgasms from it. But I started doubting it. And that's where I started to lose the sweet spot at first. then eventually the sweet spot kind of guided me back down her neck or whatever, and she starts enjoying something I did, so I'm like, oh, I'll just keep doing what she likes. Gone. Sweet spot gone. The moment you want to go on autopilot, gone. So it's like, okay, I'm not going to fake it at all. I'm not going to do any massage unless I feel that sweet spot. Blank, nothing. It's like, oh, I can't sit around and wait for it either. So you can't fake it and you can't force it, but you also can't sit around and wait for it. There's this sweet spot where you're just right on the cusp of the moment, paying attention to what feels good in you, what feels good in her. She is the world. That's what a career is you being in a relationship with the world and finding that sweet spot.
Yeah. If you
can get a retirement package out of it, good for you. I didn't pull that off, but you got to work with what you get.
Yeah, exactly. It is about increasing that sensitivity. So if I'm a guy out there listening right now and I'm wanting to just go on autopilot, what I hear us saying in this conversation is you're going to have to listen, and you're going to have to listen to messages you're probably not used to hearing. It's not going to be a script that is laid out for you by your culture or your societal kind of standards. It's going to be something that's inherently and uniquely you.
Yep. And you're capable of it.
And you're capable. Say, what do you mean by that?
I've been working with guys long enough to know that no matter how unaccustomed you are to feeling more subtle experiences, you're capable of it. If you want it, you're capable of it. Now, you may not be suffering enough. Some guys may be listening to this, and you know what? You may be full of shit, but it may be working out okay for you.
Yeah.
And if so, more power to you.
And are you saying that it's not like we're going to sit down and be quiet and all of a sudden our life's path to riches and all that kind of stuff is going to reveal itself? It may be our suffering that is the feeling we tune into. Is that what you're saying?
That's the only feeling that got my attention enough to start, but it's not the only feeling there. That's your initiation into paying attention. And there's pain, and there's also inspiration and play and all that stuff. But I've never met a guy who's not capable of feeling. Sometimes I have to start with, what's it feel like that you can feel your foot in your shoe. Like, we have to start with something really simple and gross,
right,
and then work our way up. But if you're serious about feeling like a more profound sense of meaning in your life and in your job and in your choices in general, you're capable of it. But it is going to take something from you.
Yeah, it's almost like I would have a guy I would just name out a list, because it is like I was talking to a client this morning, and I was like, so what's your sense of the situation? He's like, basically it's sucky or not sucky. Like, there was no gradation, there was no nuance, I was like, all right, that's a great place to start, but so it either sucks really bad or it doesn't suck. And then it was, yeah, that was a good start. And then let's just, kind of go in a little deeper. And what is that for you? And just like, when does it become even beyond not sucky and into like inspirational? When do you get just fired up and lit up, and when do you feel like you can conquer the world? When do you feel like you're being held down by a giant hand underwater? Like, what is that? What is all these different flavors of it? And get out from chocolate and vanilla and start to sparse it out. Do you think that's helpful for someone?
It can be if he has some sense of that. I mean, there are a lot of guys, and I've been there, who are like, I don't know, it's all good. And they're not real proactive about, well, this one makes me feel this way, and this. What I like to do is start with where you're at. And if where you're at is numb or nonchalant or like, just like ho-hum, cool, that's where you're at. But I'm going to make sure you're at least aware and in relationship with the fact that that's how you feel. And that when you woke up this morning, you felt like burdened, you had to drag your ass out of bed. Cool. No judgment. That's what's so. But I want you aware of what's so.
So even numb, even ho-hum, even what we'd say like, that is a flavor in and of itself. Recognize that that is the flavor.
It's a very, very distinct flavor, actually, that probably your whole life feels like. And people start to feel like that when they're around you. And that's where you're at. My question then is, as they get in a relationship with it, cool, how is that for you? Now, not only is that what you're experiencing, but you're aware that that's your experience. How is that for you? And maybe they feel ho-hum about the fact that they're ho-hum. Maybe in fact, that happens a lot. Well, I don't know. It's just more of the same. Like, I feel ho-hum about that. Cool. So now you're aware and you still feel fairly deflated about that. How's that for you?
Mm-hmm.
And just keep making sure that they're in a relationship. That's basically a verbal, explicit structure for this way of living your life in the moment on that cusp. And usually guys are like, that kind of sucks. I'm actually starting to get scared. The fact that I'm paying for a coach and I'm seeing that I'm feeling mediocre and I feel mediocre about that seems hopeless. I'm starting to get scared that I'm going to be sad for the rest of my life. Cool. So now you're feeling afraid. Yeah, I'm fucking shaking right now. Cool. We're following the rabbit hole deeper. Now you're starting to wake up and get more real about your life. That fear will then lead to something else, and it'll unfold into something else. And if you're afraid for a reason. Oh, because you want to be happy. Got it. There's something you actually want. In fact, you're extremely passionate about it. Mm-hmm. If you died right now, you wouldn't have expressed how much you love people in your family, or you wouldn't have worked with wildlife, or there's something there that you give a shit about just because you do. Not because that's how it's supposed to be or that's an impressive resume builder, but you just care just because you do. You can't explain it.
Right.
And you're not in touch with it. You've sold it out so long you can't even feel it anymore. You got to start where you're at and follow that rabbit hole down, and you'll hit what matters.
I love it.
And then everything changes.
I love it because it's a process that can be started. Maybe it's not something that a guy can do alone necessarily, but he doesn't have to wait for some event in his life. That the moment is always available right now is what I'm hearing you say. Like, start with what's showing up right now.
That'd be cool if that was true. That'd be cool, man. Like, if someone can hear this interview and be like, I don't feel excited when I wake up in the morning. I think I'm going to do something about that. Like, if guys get fired up from hearing this, that'd be amazing. And if not, I found that the world has a way of fucking with me in just the right ways, in the right times. And till then, do the best with what you got.
Yeah. What could
Practice
we do?
Being kind and love people you love, and do as best you can until you go to the next level.
What could we give the guy that's out there that maybe he doesn't have access to a coach just yet, or maybe he hasn't been to a workshop or something, but he knows that he's starting to bump up against something? What practices could you give this guy? What could we do that has some practical sense that he can start today? Is there anything that he could, maybe a journaling, or I don't know, like what would you recommend?
I'd say, okay, so I'm talking to you who would actually even consider a coach enough to know that you can't afford one or whatever.
Right.
That means you're off your ass a little bit. You actually care right now. You're like, I can live a life that's more fired up and inspiring than I am right now for everyone around me. I want that. Cool. If that's you, I want you to find one day, where you get outdoors and pack a gallon, like a milk jug of water, and some trail mix, something to snack on, salami or something, some cheese. Not much though, just a little snack and some water, and go out far enough that you're not around anybody, and see what happens.
So he's
have those basic necessities handled.
Just spend the whole day out there by yourself, no distractions.
And follow those impulses. Like most men will follow Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You'll get out in the woods, and you'll follow your. Like for me, I wanted to get more high. Like I climbed up until I was up on a high ridge where I had a beautiful view. Mm-hmm. Like, I could just be here for a while. Except this jug of water isn't going to last that long. What if I'm lost out here? So I got to go back and find the trailhead that I veered off of to know that I can get back home. Cool. So security and my physiological needs are handled. Cool. Now that level of need is handled. I can relax. Then what will come up is a new, more sophisticated level of needs, and then more advanced, until you get to like, do I want to go back to the city? Do I want to go back to living in the house I live in? Do I want to go interact with people at all? Maybe I should try this other life where I can just live out in the woods by myself. No, I don't want to. I actually like people. I didn't know that. I like people. You start actually choosing your life rather than assuming your life. Everything gets richer. I'll be damned. I actually want to be in college. I never chose to be in college. I was just assumed I was going to. But I actually want to go. You can do. You don't have to change anything on the exterior, and yet your experience of your life is radically different. I came back from that exercise that I just did intuitively. It's basically what is it? Spirit quest or something, what they call it, a vision quest.
Yeah.
I was intuitively on a vision quest for a day, and by the time I got back, I looked at my closet, I looked at my clothes, I was like, what are these? I chose to wear clothes, like I'm not a nudist, I like something on my body, and I didn't choose these clothes, I just ended up with all this shit. I had to choose what I was wearing and what impact it had. Like, am I wearing something where if an old lady was lost and needing directions, she'd feel safe to approach me? That actually, I had a friend in college who wore spiky stuff that would scare that old lady. And he was like, I'm cool with that. If she's a closed-minded old lady, then screw her. I'm wearing my spiky clothes. I was like, I can respect that. But for me, spiky clothes aren't that important, and being able to help out the old lady is. So that informed my choices. But point is, I was choosing every single aspect of my life.
Yeah. I love that. That seems like that's where I really felt it the most, of like coming back, like getting far enough away from your life to just come back and just, all right, I'm going to put this piece back into play. I'm going to put this piece back into play. And I'm really clear about why I would do that. I'm really clear about why I am choosing to go to college, or I'm clear that it's the feeling that I do want to be with this woman, or I do want to go down this career path, or I do want to hang out with this group of people and that kind of thing, but it's by choice.
Because I appreciate this, and this about that group. Like, you've infused your choices with meaning. And it's richer. They feel more appreciated. That group feels more appreciated. You enjoy everything more. It changes everything.
I like that. And, again, it kind of comes up against the belief that I may have to change my whole life, and it's like, no, what I'm hearing you say is change your relationship to your life.
Bingo.
Okay. Excellent.
And from there, you probably will just start changing your life. But that handles itself.
Yeah. Well, I can attest to that. So, well, Decker, anything else you want to add before we wrap it up?
Oh, a quote comes to mind. I don't know if it's a quote, but some teacher I ran into was talking about this kind of thing, that if you start paying attention, it's like the moment you walk through the doorway of your own actual life, you simultaneously experience total exhilaration and true fear for the first time. Because there's actually something that actually matters to you on the line for the first time. But it's the kind of fear that keeps you alive and keeps you on the edge of your seat, because things matter. It's like healthy fear. Yeah,
it keeps you engaged versus shutting you down, that kind of thing?
Yeah, just coasting. And when you do that, you may experience failure, like massive failure. But most failure, like when you lose the job, or you don't get the promotion, or she breaks up with you, or whatever, the most devastating failures are oftentimes jailbreaks that have been diabolically orchestrated by your soul, by your authentic self for years. Sometimes it's an escape plan that's been engineered and set up for years. It's finally springing into action to get you out of the trap that you built for yourself. So what appears like this total failure and loss is oftentimes a mad dash for freedom.
It's a rebirth.
Yeah. Because the soul, if I remember this right, is the soul would rather fail at its own life than succeed at someone else's.
Be sure to visit thenewmanpodcast.com and let us know what you'd like to hear on The New Man. Thanks for listening.